Oh, Jesus. And here we are for yet another unboxing, and today we have the new HPI Savage XL. Now, of course, this isn't exactly new. It's a revamped version of an existing truck. And of course, as you can see, it's gotten the same treatment that the Savage X got last year. Now, this is an absolute behemoth of a truck. I didn't quite understand how big it is until I actually put it next to the Savage X and put it next to something like the new HPI Vorza that I've been recently running. But for now, this is everything you're going to get when you take it out of the box. Of course, you got the truck ready to go. We have our TF41 radio. We have a bag of spares, and of course, we got user manuals and some stickers and so forth. The user manual is actually pretty good as always. HPI do a wonderful job with their user manuals. There's exploded views in here, part numbers everywhere, maintenance and how to work the radio, what all the dials do, how to remove certain components, how to mesh your gears. Maintenance schedules. I mean, the whole thing is in there, which is fantastic. So HPI never fail on the manuals. They do a very good job there. In this little parts bag, you're going to find some preload spacers, some spare servo horns, some shock spring retainers, a spare long body post. I believe that this could be for the rear of the truck in case you want to use like an SUV style body, so it'll allow you to do that. There's also a small little plastic cross wrench in there, a big spanners type wrench thing to take the 17mm hexes out, and there's also a little aluminium turnbuckle key in there as well as you can see, some spare foam blocks for the battery trays in case you want to pad some of them up for your batteries. The TF41 radio, tried and true radio from HPI. Unfortunately, it's not the same as what came with the Vorza S. I was hoping these would come with the TF50 as well, but they still come with the TF41. And you know, it's totally fine. There's really nothing wrong with these radios. I've got a few of them now. They all work perfectly fine. I'm yet to find a flaw with them. It's just, yeah, kind of hope that they, I wish they had come with the brand new radio, but it is what it is. And here we are for the truck itself. As you can see, this thing is an absolute behemoth. It's so big that I actually had to move the tripod back a little bit just to make sure I get this thing in frame. And I very quickly realized just how small my little presentation table is here. So I've actually got a new one of these coming very soon, which should hopefully accommodate big vehicles like this. Now, as far as the body goes for this truck, of course, it's very much in the same style as the Savage X that you see in the background there. The difference is that this has got a little bit of black on the front, and it's a much longer body. Now, I know that when I unboxed that car, a lot of people complained about the body styling. It's a little bit boxy and so forth, but it's actually grown on me, and I don't mind the way that this looks. In fact, I liked the original Savage X body. I thought that it was different, probably a tad wide for what it is, but this one's definitely more in proportion. You know, with the extra length and everything. As far as the quality of body goes, it's very much the same as the X. They haven't really done anything different. We still got that little roll cage in the back here. We still got our plastic mirrors. Got these little fake sort of vents on the front here. We have a plastic grille on the front as well. And when we flip it over, you can see how everything is attached there with some body pins. The mirrors are bolted on though. And of course you can see the roll cage, how that's bolted on there as well. I would have liked to have seen some bracing along the back here because this is a very vulnerable spot. When you put the body on, you can see just how much that flexes on the back here. And all it would take was a couple of nasty upside down landings, and I think some people will just destroy this body rather quickly. So some additional protection I think would be really handy, especially on this center handle here, to have something that would actually support the roof of the body in case you do land upside down. Aside from that, it's a standard body. It's got some rigidity on the top here, especially with this additional roll cage. It does thin out a bit through the sides, as most bodies do, but nothing, you know, out of the ordinary. It would be nice, however, to have a wheelie bar to protect the rear, because my original X is starting to get a bit damaged on the back there. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But now for the truck itself, here it is. You can see how it's all laid out. It's very much the same as the Savage X. Of course, it's just longer and it is a lot wider. Wheels and tires are exactly the same. So far, my only complaint with these is that the sidewalls are a little bit too thin, a bit too flimsy. I would like to have seen some slightly thicker sidewalls, just so that the tires don't roll on themselves too much. I've noticed that when after I've run my Savage X, the tires are kind of like bending over on themselves like that. And hopefully, another thing to point out is that I had about, I think 2 or 3 of my original tires started to come unglued after my second run. So I do advise anybody that gets one of these, make sure you get yourself a tub of glue if you haven't got one already. Keep that handy, because you're probably going to need to glue those tires up, and hopefully you'll catch it before they actually, you rip the tires off the rims, which is something that I managed to do with mine. So that's about it for wheels and tires. Suspension wise, it's very much the same as the original X, although I will say it does feel a little bit light. I'm not saying that this is oversprung, it actually feels like it's underdampened, if anything. But it does bottom out fine. The shocks have been good on the Savage X, with the exception of one shock shaft that I managed to snap. But of course, aluminium shocks or aluminium shock caps wouldn't have prevented that from happening. And as you can see, these are still plastic, so I think the shocks are fine. But I understand everyone's point of view, saying that at this price point, you'd sort of expect alloy shocks to come standard on a monster truck like this. Front and rear bumpers, I believe, are exactly the same as the X. Shock towers, hinge pins, arms, everything is exactly the same as the X, with the exception of the width of this truck. So you'll be able to see it here. You can see that they've actually got some hex extenders in there, and this makes the truck a lot wider than the X. You can see that it just takes up the entire screen. This is a really wide truck. It's actually very long. It's very much truggy size. I actually put the Vorza next to this, and this is actually longer than the Vorza truggy, the green one that you see back there. But this is about the same size as about a Kraton. So I think the Vorza might actually be a bit shorter than standard, because I put the Kronos next to this, and the Kronos was about the same size. So interesting. This is wider though. This is much wider than the Kronos, by about 1 inch roughly. So just to give you an idea of sizes. Power system, we have a 2200 kV 4074 brushless motor. We have 150 amp ESC, and we have the on and off switch here, which is via a little push button, which is perfect. I think this is the equivalent of like a Max 8 combo. They're not even using 4mm bullets here. They're using, I think, 5 or 6mm bullets, which actually is a really good, a little upgrade to make sure you get plenty of power going to that motor. But of course, they choked the whole system with Dean's connectors. They're still using those, so unfortunately I'm going to be swapping those out, as I would highly recommend anybody that gets one of these to swap out Dean's and go with either XT90s or EC5s or whatever your poison is, just not these for 6S power. If you're running 4S, you'll probably be okay, but if you want to run 6S with this, yeah, these are just not going to hold up. Battery trays, well, we got them open. You can see how nice they are. You got this door that just closes everything and protects your batteries. You have this really nice thick battery strap and these very nice big generous battery compartments. Now I've actually managed to run 2 3S hard case in these battery compartments. However, I will say there was a couple of batteries, depending on where the cables come out, and there might be a couple of millimeter thickness in differences and things like that. You may need to just double check that the 3S hard case can fit in here. I've managed to fit quite a few, but I know that there's a couple that are probably a little bit tough. So I did see someone actually remove this door completely. So they just ran it bare like that without the door. I suppose you could do that. If you're really tight for space, you've got a couple of really thick batteries, you could probably do that quite easily and just remove the door. But I like the door on there. It finishes it off, it protects your battery, stops dirt and debris getting in there. It kind of makes sense to have that. Receiver box up the front here, we have 3mm TVP chassis as is standard with the Savage trucks. We have 5mm drive shafts. I think there's a CVDs in the front. No, they're not. They're dog bones in the front. So we've got dog bones in the front, and I believe we would then have dog bones in the rear as well. So that's interesting. I don't know why they didn't put CVDs in the front of this one. So a lot of stuff here is very much the same as it is on the X, with the exception of this actually has a center diff, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to trying out and just seeing how that actually works, how much different this will drive compared to the X, because I am looking forward to maybe getting a center diff for the X at some point. This does have a slipper clutch on there as well, but as you can see, the nut is tightened all the way in so that the slipper clutch basically is ineffective on the truck. The center diff is doing all the work, and that's what you want that to do. Yeah, it's great that they've actually done it that way. And that's pretty much it. You know, you've still got the same access underneath as with the Savage X. You've got all these new skid plates that they got going on here, beefy arms. Yeah, I mean, everything that you see here you've probably seen before, but it is nice to see that, you know, the entire thing on a much bigger platform now. It's longer, it's wider, it's got a center diff. I can't wait to take it out and have some fun with it. So I've got a few things to get through our wish list, so I'm going to try and pump through these as quickly as possible, all of which is pretty much based on my experience driving the Savage X, and no doubt will translate into the XL as well. So first and foremost is of course the body. As I said earlier, just some extra reinforcement on that back tray, and obviously some additional bracing here with that center brace that they've got in the actual chassis, just to bring it up and support the roof of the body. This is a longer truck with a longer body and a heavier truck as well. So all you need is a couple of small mistakes where you land upside down and you could end up destroying this thing fairly quickly. So no doubt people are going to be flipping this thing and doing stunts with it and so forth. But it would be nice to see some extra reinforcement there to prevent the body from damaging too quickly. Connectors, of course, you know, Dean's on a 6S truck in 2022 is just not something you see these days. I'm hoping that HPI is actually working on a replacement connector for future releases, but for now I encourage anybody that has one of these or is planning on getting one of these to change out those plugs to something a little bit better. A wheelie bar. Now, I'm going to reserve the wheelie bar judgment a little bit here because this is a longer wheelbase. It's got a center diff. This is going to drive a little bit different than the Savage X. I have no doubt in that. So I don't know if the wheelie bar is really going to be 100% necessary here. It may be more of an option depending on how you tune your truck. But who knows? Maybe it pops wheelies just the same as it does the Savage X. The Savage X 100% needs a wheelie bar out of the box. This one here remains to be seen, but I'm going to put it on a wish list anyway because this is an expensive truck and I feel it should come with it anyway. A steering servo. Now this is one that I didn't mention in the features part of this video, but I'm going to tell you here. The specs on this steering servo is 10 kilograms of torque, which I think is, and I'm sorry to say, I think that's laughable for a truck this big and this heavy to have only 10 kilograms on a steering servo. That is just not on. That's something that you use in a cheapish buggy, you know what I mean? Like a 1/8 scale buggy maybe, but on a massive, Savage XL monster truck, to have only a 10 kilogram servo, that is not good. HPI need to upgrade that, and I'm hoping they do it sooner rather than later. I had to upgrade the one on my Savage X. No doubt I'm going to have to upgrade the one that comes with this truck as well. I will run it for the first time and just see how it goes, but yeah, I'm already predicting that I'm going to be swapping out the steering servo very quickly on this one. CVDs in the front of this truck. I was actually surprised not to see CVDs in this one. I don't think the X comes with them either. You know, I haven't had any issues not coming with CVDs. I haven't had dog bones pop out or anything crazy like that, but I don't know. I just would have liked to have seen CVDs in this. The tyre walls being a little bit thicker, as I mentioned earlier, the tyres tend to roll on themselves after you've ran the truck a little bit. Maybe it's got something to do with the softness of the foams, but I think a slightly thicker wall on the tyres just to help keep their shape a little bit would really be nice. I love the rubber compound. I love the tread pattern on this. I haven't had any issues with grip or anything like that. I've actually been pretty happy with it overall, but yeah, it's just the walls are a bit too soft. And last but not least, of course, the aluminium shocks. Although I haven't had any leaky shocks or shock caps popping off or anything like that, aside from that broken shock shaft, my shocks have been totally fine on the X, but I know a lot of people expect to see alloy shocks, especially with threaded bodies, in monster trucks that are costing $1,000 plus here in Australia. So I would definitely encourage HPI to maybe look into that in the future. My thoughts on the HPI Savage XL 2022 edition are going to be mostly positive. I know that there are a few shortcomings here that I pointed out in the wish list, but there's not one single one that's kind of like a deal breaker. Some of these things can be overlooked and have been working fine, as the Savage X, for example, has demonstrated. Aside from something like the steering servo, which is obviously a little bit of an expense that most people are going to have to fork out for to get that rectified. To be honest, it's something that a lot of people do on RTR vehicles anyway, because even though they may have exceptional power, they may have some really good suspension and diff tunes, and they got really strong chassis, the steering servos are always something that seems to be getting upgraded regardless of what RC you've got. So, this is something that's going to have to happen anyway. Now, does that excuse HPI from having a 10 kilogram servo on a truck this big and heavy? No, absolutely not. I think they should definitely show that they are trying to at least give us something that isn't going to force us to upgrade right away. But at the same time, I wouldn't call that a deal breaker per se. Having the plastic body chocks, a lot of people complained about those in the Savage X videos. But aside from the broken shock shaft, as I mentioned, I really haven't had anything go bad with it. I broke a shock shaft on my Creighton EXB recently as well. So it happens. It's not something that I would classify as a deal breaker. Wheels and tires, people swap them out all the time. But these have been totally fine. I'm still using the stock ones on the Savage X. Even though I've got spare tires that I could whack on here at any time. I actually like the rubber compound and the grip on this. So, the bodies have been okay. That one's looking, it's got some damage on the back due to the lack of wheelie bar, but again, it's not really a deal breaker per se. So my thoughts here are mostly positive. I like what HPI are doing. And for us to have this massive expectation that, oh cool, HPI are revising the Savage, they're going to fix every single problem that's pre-existed through all the decades that these trucks have been out, and they're going to do it in one solid hit. That's not going to happen. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take some development, and I'm sure they will get there. What I would like to do is just encourage them and review these cars as best as I can to give them some feedback and hopefully help them make these revisions possible, and get some feedback from all of you guys from watching my videos as well, so that I could, help them make these cars better, and so that they can go toe to toe and perhaps even be better than some of the other vehicles that are out there on the market today. So for me, this is a big thumbs up from me for the Savage XL, at least on first impressions. I haven't driven the car yet. Maybe the review will be different, but I can't say too many negative things here, because I really want HPI to keep going with this and to give us more revisions in the future, where some of these little shortcomings will get addressed, and we'll finally have a car that the wish list is probably only going to be very small, and it's only going to be trivial stuff, maybe have a different color antenna tube or something like that. And that wraps up yet another unboxing here on the channel. Big shout out to HPI, of course, for sending this truck out for review. I really do appreciate it. And for those of you that are still watching this, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button before you go. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. And as always, check out the video description. I'll have links in there to where you can get one of these here in the country, as well as a link to the HPI website, where you can dig a little deeper and find out some more details about the Savage XL 2022 edition. That is it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll be speaking to you all next time. We have some spare parts here, and we also have, why am I out of breath? You have a 17 millimeter, God damn it, where the body posts are especially, and have something here on this shock tower, this handle, not shock tower, this, let me start that again. And here we are for the main event. Now, this guy is absolutely blah. And I've really come to the realization that looking at the body itself from there, so I've got about half a dozen things with my and you'd only need to make a couple of messy, small mistakes where you land upside down. Aside from the shortcomings that you see on these particular I have to say, good on them for giving a crack and giving a crack. And that wraps up yet another unboxing here on the channel. Really we'll see a release in the future that actually has XT90 connectors or some other connector that is obviously a lot better than these. What else? Shit, I forgot.